The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Welcome to the Brandon Peters Show and the continued adventures of the Summer of 93 at 30 series, a weekend-by-weekend look at the movies released during the summer of 1993. And as always with me here, we have from The Wrap, Mr. Scotty Mendelson.
Hello, it's good to be back.
And while he takes a break in the void, let me introduce for you writer from We Live Entertainment, editor too, right? Senior editor.
That's correct.
Why So Blue, Variety, a member of the Hollywood Critics Association, and
What year is that?
The beloved host of Out Now with Aaron and Abe, Aaron, not Abe. It's Aaron Neuwirth.
Hey, we did it. We were back. We weren't canceled after the first week. We made it through the pilot.
We made it through the pilot. They let us
Fuck
watch.
you, Zaslav.
They rewarded us with these three movies. Yeah, this is the second week here in 1993, a less higher profile than last week, sort of.
Oddly enough.
Just kind of.
Yes, I would say so. It's the second weekend of summer, just like a blob from Warner Brothers. We have the second week.
We have stars and hopeful stars. It's a variety week here. Throw it at the wall. Yeah, I this is gonna be I think a one that's more fun to talk about than it was to study up for, possibly.
Yeah,
fair.
But yeah, we're gonna get into it. But first, as we always do, it's time for the news.
When I wake up, don't you know I'm gonna be the man who brings the news to you.
Coming Thursday. After 344 episodes,
Do you love me?
spend one last night as all the loose ends get tied up on knots. Final episode Thursday. This is CBS.
Here we go. Last week we had a note. Aaron's birthday occurred on last week's episode. He was born that week, so we crossed over with his birthday. He mentioned it, and Scott and I kept talking and didn't say a damn thing. So apologies to Aaron for saying a lot happened on my birthday, and just keep on going through the news.
heard. I just didn't give a shit.
Oh, jeez.
Now I'm more aware of what we're doing here. It's these 3 days for this week.
Yes. So, all right. Well, Brandon really thought about me here today. No. So May 10th, Paul Cézanne's painting Still Life with Apples sells for $28.6 million in New York City. I don't even know what that painting is, but
That art is dumb.
worth more than myself. May 10th, also a fire in a clothing factory at Bangkok kills 145 people. Always got to bring the downers with the art sellers.
Labor regulations, not so dumb.
Yeah. On May 12th, Parma of Italy wins the 33rd European Winners' Cup against Royal Antwerp of Belgium 3-1 in London.
Damn right.
Yeah, I was.
There goes $50.
Yeah, I was. Whew. On May 13th, CBS soap opera Knots Landing ends a 14-year run with the 334th show in both Netherlands and U.S. So goodbye, Knots Landing.
Knots Landing that's a soap opera? I've only ever heard the title. I never realized it was like a soap opera.
It might have been the back of the day through the 80s. They kind of died off toward the end of the 80s, early 90s, but they had primetime soaps like Dynasty. Dallas probably goes with that.
Sure.
Knots Landing.
And back then, shows ran for a long time.
They did run for a long time.
No, it was a huge deal when Dallas finally ended.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was absolutely a primetime soap with all the goofy.
If you were getting ratings, you kept going.
Yeah,
kept going and going and going. Like that was it. Like they didn't care. But the
arc
of our story.
It's like, you want more money in the third season? Yes, because people are watching it, and that's good. We will also make money. Here you go.
Should we go for season 23? Well, we're still top 10 for our, that's what they do.
We randomly started a series-wide, not a binge, because it's been months and months of Bones, a show that ran for 12 freaking years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a fun show, don't get me wrong, but 12 years.
I watched that show for the first like 4 or 5. It's a fun show.
It's wild that the equivalent today is The Simpsons and Family Guy, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like those, that's the equivalent of Dynasty. That's what we have. And those shows, not Sunny, but the animated shows take longer to make than Dynasty does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, over the UK, it's like they have staples that have been just going for like Doctor Who's the normal one, but EastEnders, Midsummer Murders, like tons. They have a lot of shows.
3 episodes a season.
Of which one?
Well, I mean, in general, British television.
No, like in general, in a general sense,
6 to 12.
But
6 to 12.
So yeah, that's how they make up the difference. They have EastEnders and they have like Luther for 3 episodes, and then they're done.
Right. I mean, it depends, and they take breaks too. They took breaks before it was cool to take breaks. So, like the Red Dwarf that's been on for so many years, but it does not have like the season amounts. It's had like gaps in where it's been, but
nothing's gonna beat Sesame Street.
Oh, Sesame Street. All right. So on May 13th, Kansas City Royal George Brett hits his 300th home run.
Good for him.
May 15th. Speaking of UK, Eurovision Song Contest was going on. Niamh Kavanagh for Ireland wins by singing "In Your Eyes" in Mill Street. So congrats.
Still at it.
Still going. On May 16th, Judd Nelson pleads no contest to kicking Kim Evans in the head.
Oh,
that was the thing. Yeah. Nelson keeping that vibe going.
This is what he was.
It's like that might come up again if I ever have a comeback. He thinks.
Right.
Well, that's when he signed that contract for Suddenly Susan. I'm sure.
Right.
Oh God, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
This is right.
I keep forgetting that we're in the 90s.
Yeah.
I keep placing this shit with the 80s.
We are not at Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Judd Nelson. We are at Suddenly Susan.
Yes.
Remember there was a serial killer movie starring Judd Nelson?
Which one was that?
It's like a TV movie.
Yeah. I know.
I forget the title. I'm sure it's really generic. That's why I can't think of it ever. I have to look it up. But they made that, and then there was a sequel. They made a sequel to it also. It had Judd, and he like burying people underground or something, or like it chopped them up in like his boat.
Relentless. So it was Relentless. They were theatrical.
I think I've seen that on Cinemax at 2 a.m.
So you remember the guy who played Bud in Halloween 2?
Of course.
Naturally.
No.
He ends up there's like 4 of these, and he like becomes the lead through them. So it starts with Judd Nelson.
Yeah, I remember this crap.
And because they were at the rental store like crazy. There was like Relentless, and I think they go up to 4. So anyways, yeah, so Judd Nelson right there, the blah blah blah. And on May 16th, Suleiman Demirel elected president of Turkey.
Oh yeah, his reign.
Yeah,
what a landmark.
Right. True. All right, our deaths this week. William Randolph Hearst passed away this week in 1993. Yeah.
And Orson Welles wept.
Yes. Actor Joaquin Garcia Vargas from Santa Sangre. She passed away. Marv Johnson, an R&B pianist, singer, and songwriter, passed away as well. Born this week is Debbie Ryan. Romelu Lukaku, he's a soccer player, and Miranda Cosgrove from iCarly, and
School of Rock.
Yeah, Christina Mladenovic, tennis player.
Debbie Ryan's from
those shows
Jesse,
and those
right?
things.
Huh?
Jesse from the Disney Channel.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We have they're starting to get born, that generation of Disney Channel.
This is gonna suck.
All Scott's crushes are gonna come tumbling down. Oh man,
I don't want to get canceled in episode 2.
Oh yeah,
it's not her. There's other ones. No, I'm kidding.
Gotcha.
All right. The news.
Well, let's move into our first movie, which played regionally on this weekend in 1993. Excessive Force.
Some say Detective McCain cares too much.
Shake up your life. Do something crazy with it. Play music for a living.
You saying what I do now is not crazy enough?
Some say he goes too far.
These statements were obtained through the use of excessive force.
Some say he's out of control.
What do you want?
I want to see the tough guy. I want to see the guy who smashes knees, shoots people in the face.
Now,
Game time.
there's a new force to reckon with.
You're out of control, Terry.
Thomas Ian Griffith. Excessive Force.
Die with a little dignity.
At last, the punishment fits the crime.
Directed by John Hess. Written by Thomas Ian Griffith. Believe me, I would have had no idea he wrote this. None. Starring Thomas Ian Griffith, James Earl Jones, Lance Henriksen, Tony Todd, and Burt Young. Chicago policeman Terry McCain is determined to put away mobster Sal DeMarco, who always gets acquitted on technicalities. While monitoring a drug sale, a shootout ensues, and one of Terry's fellow officers gets away with $3 million of Sal's money. Suspecting Terry took the cash, the mobster sends his men to kill Terry's brother and partner. Furious, Terry sets out to take his revenge by any means necessary. Only
Even by
playing in major
excessive
cities.
force?
Yeah, he took it by excessive force. Director Hess, you may be familiar with John Hess's work, that of Alligator 2: The Mutation, the Corey Haim movie Watchers, and I noticed he used Xander Berkeley a lot in his earlier films, so maybe they're buds or something. So
Theater buddies.
yeah,
To the extent that this is a Griffith vanity project, I'm sorry. Oh yes, I was surprised that I would not be surprised to hear if the director was pulling a George P. Cosmatos type deal here.
mm-hmm.
Because this film, I obviously like Xander Cage, the Return, or Triple X, the Return of Xander Cage, more than
Go on,
people.
yes.
But it kind of reminded me of this. This kind of reminded me of that, and that it has a lead actor for whom this is a giant vanity project, who theoretically makes it all about him. But the supporting cast is so fucking awesome that it almost works despite all of that.
Did you know he's awesome, Thomas Ian Griffith? Did you know how
apparently
good
he is?
He is so
That's
awesome.
a weird poll. I mean, like, we don't need to talk about Xander Cage, but like that movie shares a lot of the wealth. Like, Vin Diesel's not just there being like, "I'm."
Oh no,
best.
that's
like,
why, and that's why I like Xander Cage, that movie.
I mean, there's other vanity projects that have a much higher focus on the star, despite having a better supporting cast than Triple X.
This is a
treadmill.
This is a glorified like Neil Breen movie. I don't know if you've seen Neil Breen or know it. This is exactly what the hell he does in his movies. Like this is no different than a Neil Breen movie.
Accurate.
Yeah, and once again,
the fights are better than most Neil Breen
and the actors,
the
actors. But yes, this is
debatable.
And it's and it's weird because the entire time I'm watching this picture, and it has the feel of a stereotypical 80s action picture, as do a lot of early 90s pictures for obvious reasons. It's funny to the extent when you think prototypical 80s action, you think of something like Stone Cold, which is actually 1991. Which I like Stone Cold quite a bit, but that's a different conversation. But I'm thinking this must be when all of these actors were sort of down on their luck or couldn't get anything better. But no, I mean, Lance Henriksen was about to do Hard Target if he hadn't done. Yeah, he was about to do Hard Target. James Earl Jones was fine. He was working all the time.
This feels like the biggest, like someone got a huge favor to get James Earl Jones to pop in here because he appears in 3 scenes. I mean, it's not like he was taking months at a time.
Well, look at
this movie.
three of the greatest voices of all time: Tony Todd, James Earl Jones, and Lance Henriksen.
Yeah,
all
Tony
in
Todd's
movie.
in this as just, I mean, it's while this
Tony
film is.
Tony Todd wanders into this thing, and I'm like, oh, cool, Tony Todd with a mustache. All right,
Yeah.
I'm into
Yes.
this. Then he supposedly dies like 2 scenes later. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, I guess we cashed out on our Tony. Then he's like, oh no, it's right, he's just bad.
I have to say I enjoyed the second comparatively. I enjoyed the second half of this picture more because those characters, once they're all revealed to be good guys or bad guys, they get to act. I'm explaining the plot and why I did the terrible things I did. Feel bad for me, and it's silly, but it's acting.
It felt like Thomas Ian. I always say it's Griffith.
I don't.
Griffith. Yeah, you want to say Nicholas. So yeah.
Because he's Rookie of the Year. But it feels like he was starting to write this movie about excessively, it's like, I'm going to be a tough cop and I'm going to have cool action scenes. Then he's like, well, what do I do now? And he drank like a whole bunch of coffee, took a whole bunch of Adderall, and just like, all right, let's do this thing. And he like wrote a bunch of like new twists and turns to keep the movie interesting, to sell it to buyers. It's like, okay, but get this. In the second half, he's going to be a corrupt cop and he's going to have a partner. And it's like, oh boy, this movie's like, yeah. So I agree, Scott. The movie, like, let's be clear, it's bad. This is
No,
bad
it's
movie.
terrible.
It's incredibly watchable. It's incredibly watchable, though.
But the first half, I'll be honest, even though I love, or at least I have a fondness for schlocky, ultra-violent action films, my thought was, this film is so action-packed. Why am I so bored? But again, I think comparatively, it rises to 2 stars in the second half. Because again, I think it's just the cast gets to play as opposed to just being exposition machines.
Yeah. There's some funny one-liners and stuff here too, like the work with it. Like, there's a part where before Tony Todd dies, where they almost like hand you the telegraph of his death, where he's like, go in and get us a couple beers. He's like, you want a sandwich or something? He's like, no, we're drinking, not eating. I was like, that's good. But yeah, no, like it, like from the outset, like it is. Oh, watch Thomas Ian. Like Tony Todd sits and does nothing as Thomas Ian Griffith does everything for things, and like just there's like the badass interrogation, the shootout, and then he's even got the woman who only exists to bitch at him and then sleep with him when when it's
and
time.
to the film's credit, she does not get kidnapped. I was shocked.
That's stunning, but she does get involved in the action scene when they like Born Identity out to the winter place.
I mean, she gets the machine gun guy. That was nice.
I was trying to pinpoint it, and it's Charlotte Lewis, right, who is involved with stuff with Polanski. And I was like, oh yeah, this person. Mm-hmm. It's like I knew there's something familiar about who this is. But yeah, I mean, it operates on tropes. Obviously, I mean, it's not breaking any barriers. I think what it comes down to, beyond like the supporting stuff and the things that are obviously likable to an extent, is like, well, is he shining? Is this his moment to like really bring something as a leading star? And the answer is obviously no. This is not the.
Where do you find yourself yearning for the raw charisma of Steven Seagal?
That's who they were hoping for him to be. They wanted him to be
absolutely.
New Line Steven Seagal.
So much so that it's so poorly handled that like the idea that he's already at this bottom basement like tier of action star, and they couldn't even make a sequel with him still, right? It's just a whole new cast and storyline. Like, we need to make another excessive force. Do we need Griffiths? I mean, no.
Yeah, I don't know.
He wants to pay us to be in the movie. No, we can still go a different direction.
But no, it's on its face, it's the kind of rough and tumble cop action movie that we make fun of when we think of rough and tumble late 80s, early 90s action movies. Mendoza on The Simpsons, it's that kind of thing. It's what Last Action Hero was trying to spoof and couldn't for. It's because I made fun of Last Action Hero. God damn it!
That's what you get. The button.
I'm sorry. It was actually good. I was wrong.
One of my best friends from college is a DeMarco, so I had a lot of fun just hearing the name DeMarco being thrown around for 10 to 15 minutes.
Did you? This one seems like it's prime for that like Vinegar Syndrome archives or whatever section they have for like action movies.
I am curious if that happens and we get this shiny, clean 4K version. Like, well, I could see it, so that's
right. Yeah,
like,
yeah. This only
I
exists...
tried not to hold that against it.
Right. Yeah. It's what we watched was very dark and stuff, but it's not available. It's a movie that's just not which they're trying to move on from, I'm sure. But yeah,
right. Can't escape from us.
Yeah, it didn't get the New Line Platinum Edition treatment.
Yes. I did like it did have a good title drop though, where Burt Young is 13 minutes in, he's like gleefully saying excessive force. Like, here we go. There we go.
Burt Young is
Burt Young
in this movie, by the way. He's
like
really good. There's a scene where he's like John Turturro pleading for his life, and I'm like, damn it, Burt Young, you're too good for this.
You mean Burt should have been nominated for an Oscar for Rocky Balboa Young? Yes, him.
Yes. Oh. So yeah, excessive force, though it does include
excessively bad.
It does include the line, don't even dream alone at night of fucking with me. Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't quite do it. Was anyone fooled by Lance Henriksen? The minute he walked in, I'm like, yeah, he's probably not a good police chief guy.
Oh, he seems so trustworthy. I felt betrayed.
He wasn't screaming, so I'm like, oh, he's probably bad. Like he never seemed angry at the fact that this cop is using excessive force and he's always getting his case thrown out. So I'm like, if this is in a different movie, if he was angry at him, he'd be on his side. But he was playing it too cool. He's like, you can't be doing this, man. Like, that's too calm. You're probably not on the level.
Yeah.
My favorite is still, and I like this movie quite a bit, but Angel Has Fallen, which doesn't even reveal Danny Houston's treachery as a twist. It's just, there's a scene and he's the bad guy. It's like, come on. We know that you do, come on. Let's just get this nonsense.
Right. All right. But you know what, Scott, you know what you could do instead of going to see Excessive Force in 1993?
In 1993, play Super Mario Brothers 3?
No, you can watch TV. So, like the Nielsen ratings.
In a gothic tale of brotherly greed,
my father is dead.
Will a trip to Ireland give Jessica a lead?
I have to know what happened.
All new Murder, She Wrote.
This week, number 1 on the Nielsen ratings is Cheers.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. Here we are. Number 2, Home Improvement, Scott's favorite.
These fluctuate very much as we go through.
Yeah, they will, because we'll get into a weird. Summer gets weird because it's reruns, specials, all sorts of weird things. And we do have a monumental occasion coming up in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. Seinfeld, number 3. Remember, it wasn't even in the top 10 last week. Number 4, Roseanne. Number 5, a Home Improvement special on ABC. Number 6, 60 Minutes. Number 7, not as watched as part 1, Tommyknockers part 2. They knocked at the door and didn't answer. Number 8,
only 2 parts.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the conclusion.
Isn't that normal in most cases?
Yeah, because on Monday, it's usually a Monday or Tuesday, and Monday it'd be going against Monday Night Football. Or, well, not at this time of year, but then sometimes they'd be Sunday and Tuesday is a very low watch.
My recollection,
television day. So,
because like The Shining was 3 parts. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Some of them are 3-part. Like, it was 2 parts.
It's 2 parts.
And remember when The Stand was really long because it was 4 parts and ran upwards of 3 hours without commercials?
Right.
And that was an epic miniseries length.
Yep.
I remember.
And it was pretty good.
It was terrific. It was also well paced because it was only 3 hours and not 8.
Yes. There you go. Number 8, Murder, She Wrote on CBS. Number 9, Coach on ABC. And number 10, Primetime Live on ABC. I want to point out, too, that this, what's different, Scott, than when we did 82 and nowhere to be found in the top 10, Fox. They're a network now. They weren't when we were doing it in 82.
You are correct. Yeah.
And I've just realized they haven't had a show pop up yet.
They took a while.
They did take a while.
I remember.
But The Simpsons.
I want to say 96.
I
remember their first breakthrough was like. I mean, obviously they had plenty of relative hits, but I remember it was the fall of 96 where they had the World Series, the premiere of Millennium, which got huge hype, and the 4th season premiere of The X-Files when it was on Sundays, I think,
Sundays.
instead of Fridays. And all of a sudden, after 3 seasons of being this cult show that was barely hanging on, boom, it's a mainstream hit.
Yeah.
And that was the first week that they actually won the ratings overall, the network.
Yeah. Because right now they'd be 21 Jumps, right? I don't know. Aaron, what were you saying?
Fox was my choice network back in the day because it was Simpsons, X-Files, and then you had Rock, Living Single.
It was offbeat stuff. Yeah, it was great.
You had black shows. Yeah.
Well, and Living Color.
Until they got too popular, and then they went mainstream. Mm-hmm. Just like UPN and Netflix.
And then they made Friends, which was, NBC made Friends, and which was somehow Living Single became the Black Friends. Like, I don't know about this.
I mean, yeah, well, Fox is always doing weird. Like 24 started on Fox. Like, they just seem like off. Yes, they had a lot of black shows back in the day in the 90s too, but like, it was not what everybody else was showing.
Yes, it wasn't.
Yeah,
that's so it was a network. I'm like, there's stuff here that I recognize more of, and I was very much enjoying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was Martin.
Not
was
not everybody's Cosby.
Yeah,
other things going on.
Yeah, in Living Color, where the white guy became the phenomenon person.
That's what I was gonna say. I was primed for all this Carey stuff because I'm like, I know him from Living Color. He's like, movie star. This is great.
I knew him back when he was James Carey.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Well, so
I kept waiting for David Alan Grier to become a bigger star.
Yeah, I thought that guy was gonna
the best.
Jump off. Yeah,
he's a theater trained actor who's also very funny.
There's so much from that show. I used to watch that all the time. Starring Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez, she was one of the biggest people from Living Color as well.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. The Greers. Oh, gosh. Good stuff there. Okay. Our next film is Lost in Yonkers this week.
In 1991, a play opened on Broadway. It won the Tony. It won the Pulitzer. It won our hearts.
Wanna kiss me?
Now, the critics agree. The movie is even better. Yes! You'll laugh. You'll cry. You'll fall in love with Yonkers.
I look and down. You look wonderful. Really? Because they put it back on a month ago.
Lost in Yonkers, rated PG, at theaters May 14th.
Directed by Martha Coolidge. She a Valley Girl, Real Genius, and a Mendelson family classic, Out to Sea. Written by Neil Simon, starring.
I don't think I've even seen that. I don't get it.
What's on TV, kids? Look, it's Out to Sea.
That's the Dennis. Is that Dennis Leary and
no? That's what
am I thinking of?
It's one of those we got to cash in off Grumpy Old Men movies.
That's Two If by Sea you're thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Out to Sea is the last Walter Matthau Jack Lemmon movie.
Yeah.
Oh, which I've also never seen.
Gotcha.
You're thinking of Mendelson Family Classic, My Fellow Americans.
There you go. That one too.
We just figured you would naturally pivot to that because they got Gardner out of there. They finally got Lemmon back.
There you go.
They got Matthau back. We can finally do this thing.
Okay. It stars Richard Dreyfuss, Mercedes Ruehl, Irene Worth, David Strathairn, and Mike Damas. In the summer of 1942, two young boys are sent to stay with their stern grandmother and their childlike Aunt Yonkers in New York. This is a Pulitzer Prize winning play, I believe. Simon,
multiple Tonys as well.
I started watching this movie and I was like, Richard Dreyfuss is in this, right? Like
first build.
And I was like, we aren't getting Ana de Armas here, are we? And nonetheless, Aaron, what are your thoughts on Lost in Yonkers?
I like it more than you. I'm not going to say it's a new comedy classic that I'm happy I discovered or anything, but I liked it. For one thing, yes, it's about Jews and Yonkers. Like, okay, I'm into this. I really like these two performances from Mercedes Ruehl and Irene Adler. They both won Tonys for the play, and I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
And this is that period where Mercedes Ruehl is like, this is her like Hollywood moment, like between like 89 to now is like the kind of like she's in movies and she's doing stage plays, and she won an Oscar for Fisher King, right? So it's
right.
Like,
mm-hmm.
So like she's in fine form here. Like this is the kind of thing that she can do pretty well. I think the grandmother is very good as well. Like that story, it's Neil Simon. So I'm like, is it fun? Like it's humorous. It's not, laugh. There's some one-liners that I enjoyed, and there's some bits that I like. It's a weird because it's like a coming of age story, and it's like a weird kind of mobster movie ish, and it's like a kind of a get out of your shell dramatic love story thing. Like there's a lot of like ideas packing in. So it's a weird like thing to see as a film, because I can imagine a play would make a lot more sense out of all of these things, all these different strands and whatnot.
True.
So as a movie, it's it's weirdly loaded in certain places as far as what it's trying to do. But I do think the moments that are supposed to be more affecting are generally affecting. I do think like once Dreyfuss actually shows up, which is like 40 minutes into the movie,
43.
like, thank you. He's doing his thing. He's doing his Dreyfuss thing. I like that he's playing this kind of like, for Richard Dreyfuss, playing a guy that like wants to pump himself up as this tough guy, but he's also a guy that like listens to everything his mother tells him. Like there's stuff there that I found to be endearing in its own way. It's not the best Neil Simon movie that I've seen, written adaptation of his thing that I've seen, but like I for something I've just never seen before, I had a good time with it. Good enough.
Yeah, a couple of marshals going down. Yeah, everybody talking with their little accents and stuff. And what I did like the line, what was it? They called Dreyfuss like it's like living with James Cagney every day or something like that.
Yeah, like a James Cagney movie.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think of the Yonker
I
loss?
enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, it's one of
Did it have enough moxie for you?
Moxie,
indeed. No, it's and I know that sounds like a broken record, but it's a 3-star character-driven movie, and I was considering how farcical the first hour or so is. Not like slamming door farce, but obviously it's I was surprised by how moved I was by the finale. By the wrapping up of certain character beats.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big dramatic scene between her and her mother, that's the obvious one, and that one is incredibly effective. I was sort of shocked just because it's not a role he plays all that often. We saw David Strathairn as sort of a, not super intelligent country bumpkin. He's usually the smartest person in the room, no matter what the movie is.
Right. Yeah.
So that was, again, he's young enough to A, be able to play that character, and B, be kind of a heartthrob in its own skewed way. Obviously he's aged very well. He's very prestigiously handsome, but I wasn't used to seeing him that young.
From what I understand, that character is not in the play. He's only referenced off stage, and so they invented him, like they physicalized him for the
that makes
version.
sense, actually. Yeah. I can see that. The stuff with the kids, it's fine. I mean, it's very, I don't want to say boilerplate because that's an insult, but it's
we needed an Elijah Wood in here. That's what I'm saying.
You needed a slightly stronger kid actor. And I don't want to bag on kid performances from 30 years ago.
They're old now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but this was before that. Haley Joel Osment sort of kicked in the door and said, "Kids can be good now, damn it." But
Ralph Macchio, he's too old though at this point. So.
Although he still looks about 12, so it would work.
Yeah.
He's fucking 61 and he still looks the same age as Karate Kid. But anyway. But no, it's I like the actors. I like it. Obviously it feels like a stage play. It's mostly people working out their issues in a very stationary setting. The mob plot is about it's less threatening than Woody Allen film because nobody gets killed.
Right.
PG.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so yeah, I mean, I liked it for what it was. It was a sweet, occasionally moving, relatively engrossing coming of age film. It's very slight. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but it was on my, it's one that I'm glad I caught up with because of this show.
Gotcha. I was the one who wasn't that big of a fan of this one. I watching this, I get it's a stage play. And I'm not a kid hater person, but I wasn't really into them or anything. Like I wanted this movie to just kind of be about the sister. Like that was where all the good stuff was. I liked what she was going through. I kind of wanted more of her perspective rather than the kids from afar. Dreyfuss comes in, like he needs injected in here much earlier, because he does bring a fun little energy and stuff. But I don't know. It probably works as a stage play, and I get it's adapting from that, but like I don't know if it's the casting or whatever. I just wasn't that invigorated with the kids stuff, and they're a bit too observant and not here. with things, rather not too involved. They do get involved with the little thing as Dreyfuss exits the film, but I kind of, I don't know, they don't feel like the stuff that they're actually doing or involved in is that important. And I'm sitting here like, oh, the sister story is good. There's some good chops, there's some great scenes, some good performances there with it, but all together is kind of lollygagging around with like a good segment of it that I liked a lot, but overall just kind of like, kind of ho-hummed with it. It's not awful by any means, just kind of one of those like, all right, but and it would bring me back in here and there, but I would lull out from time to time. But yeah, the sister, that's where the story is. I wish it would have that would have just been the focus of this movie, but yeah, it is what it is.
It does remind me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I do think the grandmother, Irene, I think she is very good here. I do think that's the kind of thing where, when I kept thinking back on this movie after watching it, I was like, this is, because in the moment you're just like, oh, she's so mean, but then you're like just thinking of where it goes, and even by, like you were saying, Scott, the finale where it kind of wraps up things and there's certain implications as far as what's going on. It's like, I really like this character, like this person that has seen a lot essentially, and is ultimately wanting the best for everybody. Is just his old grandmother. He's going to be a little mean. Like that's kind of the fact that was registering with me, after the fact. It's like, okay, so there's more here as far as what I'm thinking about than just like the stuff that I didn't appreciate, which I agree with you on. There's more. It's lingering with me in a good way. So like I appreciate that. I appreciate that it stuck with me like that.
This movie did tell something interesting and had a nice turn that I didn't kind of feel coming with the Strathern relationship, where it came to a head where I was like, oh gosh, we've been led to believe he was a lot more competent than what we get in that scene. Like I felt like that was a pretty big surprise. Granted, the details are there in spots, but to see it come to a head and to have this, like, because you're really rooting for the sister character in this, you really want her to, and the fact that A, it happens to her, B, you're like, oh my gosh, you feel bad for Strathern, both of them at the same time, and you see what a good person she is, that, hey, screw all this, you need help or whatever, what's going on here. And then she has to go home to the I told you so with the mother. That's like the best piece of the film for me, right there, because it just hurts to watch. It's so well done, so well acted, surprising, and then it's like painful to watch because like they're doing it so well. That's the stuff where I can see why there's Tony Awards being given out to these actors, because it has to build to these kind of scenes. That's like the meaty good stuff as far as seeing a play come to life like this goes.
It feels like it's the reason for the season, so to speak. I did like just and I'm sure I'll feel this way as we watch a lot of the movies from 30 years ago, in that it is refreshingly culturally specific because it's small and cheap enough to be.
Yeah,
sure.
And yes, as an American Jew, yay, it's very Jewish, yada yada yada. Yada 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 indeed. But I mean it's but it's the kind of thing that we used to take for granted, because you had a larger offering of culturally specific pictures that didn't feel the need to be 4-quadrant or appeal to every potential demographic, appealing to all, alienating to none, blah blah blah. And that's why I got a little defensive, God, 9 years ago, Jesus, 8.5 years ago, over that Zach Braff film that he funded on Kickstarter. And he said the reason for it was basically he knew that through the studio system, he couldn't make it as Jewish as he wanted. And once I saw the pictures, like, oh yeah, he was fucking right. And as much as the film was sort of treated as if it's some vanity project, I would argue it's not. It's just a movie that's very hard to get financed for in this day and age. And B, I think it's telling that the best scene in the film is between, Mandy Patinkin and Kate Hudson. Aren't him. So I mean, there's something to be said about that.
I'm thinking, I remember this like that 2010 period where that, and like Spike Lee had to fund the Five Blood. They're not
the vampire one, I think.
The sweet blooded. They both start with duh. The sweet blooded Jesus. They were doing crowdfunding stuff before it was cool, and it's the guy they were like, if you take 5 seconds to look at why, you can very much but no, everyone wants to react immediately to how could these millionaire movie makers need money from people? And it's like
you defend real projects like a fucking Veronica Mars movie,
right?
Yeah, yeah, which got unbridled support. Just like everybody was just super through. It's like fucking finally, CW can screw itself. We can fund the Veronica Mars movie ourselves.
That feels like the start of something in retrospect.
Yeah. I mean, that's an essay for the Rap Pro.
Yeah.
But,
I'll have to interview you for that to get away with it.
But looking at Lost and Yonkers, I completely agree. As far as yes, it is refreshing just to see a movie existing as it is because hey, we can do that. Yeah. When we start the Yonkers universe with Neil's additional work, I'll be happy to go to every franchise entry. But yeah, for this one, I get it.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, it's crap. Like, what's the difference between walking to business investors for funding a movie and then going to people? Hey, would you like to fund a movie? Like, there's no. I don't see the difference. If someone wants to see a movie and put their money to it, do it. Like it's vanity project or not, you get funding. I don't think people just don't know how movies are made, I guess. But hey,
nothing's new.
Nothing's new. But we do have a new number one. If we go to the Casey Kasem Top 40. Casey's biggest hits this week.
That's a good segue. Mazel tov.
Okay.
All right. So
what's hitting the charts this week?
Casey Kasem's weekly top 40. Janet Jackson's "That's the Way Love Goes" as hit number one. And it will stay there for a while. "Freak Me" by Silk has fallen to number 2. "Love Is" by Vanessa Williams and Brian McKnight, number 3. "Informer" goes to number 4 from Snow. "I Have Nothing" by Whitney Houston stays at number 5. "Nothing But a G Thing" by Dr. Dre. It's number 6. "Knockin' to Boots" by H-Town at number 7. Number 8, "I'm So Into You" by SWV. Number 9, "Looking Through Patient Eyes" PM Dawn. And number 10, "Don't Walk Away" Jade. So those are your top 10 songs for this week in 1993. I hope you like "That's the Way Love Goes." Hearing that at number 1 because it's going to be nonstop for a while, but what will knock it off? Stay tuned, keep listening as we round up here and go check out Posse.
I can't wait for that hit Jurassic Park single to knock out all the.
Oh yeah. Oh,
remember when Naughty by Nature sang that hit song for Steven Spielberg? Oh man, that was great.
Yes.
Dino You, Dino Me.
Yes, Dino You, Dino Me. That was so good. That was so good. I would walk into movies like I'd get out of a movie and be like, "Is Jurassic Park ending?"
Reference? Nope. Just right from the noggin.
Fair enough. Say you, say me.
You would do the Dilophosaur dance where you just shimmy in and go.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So Posse.
Many legends came out of the West, but their story went untold. A story of 6 outlaws, wilder than the Wild West. Mario Van Peebles, Stephen Baldwin, Big Daddy Kane, Billy Zane, Tone Loc, Blair Underwood. From the director of New Jack City, Posse, rated R, now playing at theaters everywhere.
Directed by Mario Van Peebles, written by Cy Richardson, Dario Scartapane, and starring Mario Van Peebles, Stephen Baldwin, Charles Lane, Paul Bartel, Blair Underwood, Pam Grier, Billy Zane, Melvin Van Peebles, Richard Gant, Richard Jordan, Tone Loc, Big Daddy Kane, Reginald Val Johnson, and Isaac Hayes. In 1898, Cuba, 5 Buffalo soldiers find a gold cache desert and return to America, where they help defend a black town from the KKK, all the while trying to avoid capture by lawmen and military authorities alike. This is the first film from Gramercy Pictures. So Posse, Aaron, what do you think of Posse?
Real quick, Scott, do you know the highest grossing Gramercy Pictures film?
I don't.
It's Mr. Bean.
Fuck yeah, Mr. Bean.
$250 million.
Go British.
Why did they make a sequel? Because it made that much money. How much did Mr. Bean's Holiday make?
Like
$226 million.
Yeah. Same thing with like the Bridget Jones movies.
Why is there not a third Bean is what I'm asking. These movies
we got 3 Johnny Englishes.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care about Johnny English.
The United Kingdom does.
So
Mr. Bean, not a great movie, but there's a scene where like he rigs an amusement park ride that made me laugh so hard I almost fell out of my seat.
There's a lot of good bits in Bean. Anyway, back to entirely the opposite thing of a white British man who's silent. Posse, so to back up a bit, or not to go forward a bit, I'm a huge fan of the Netflix film The Harder They Fall. I think that's one of their best hands-down original releases. The story of the Black Cowboys that are all like actual characters in a fictionalized version. It's basically the Black Western version of RRR as far as fictionalized history goes. So like the prospect of finally, because I've been wanting to see Posse for a while, so finally seeing a the 90s Black Cowboy movie that happens to have Stephen Baldwin in a leading role.
First billing. First build.
Alphabetically, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. Did I run the right movie? Shit.
Watching it unfold, I was like, okay, I get what we're doing here. Like this movie walked so The Harder They Fall can run because it's a far more stylish film. But this movie has a lot of style going for it. I like what Van Peebles is going for here. I do think the story is trying to do like a lot because it feels like one of those kitchen sink movies where Van Peebles like, I might not get to do this again if I'm going to be able to tell like a story of Black Cowboys, something that was very prevalent and has been washed away by history books, and for reasons. I'm going to try to shove it all in here as much as I can.
What are you implying, Aaron?
It doesn't necessarily help that you have a mix of a lot of good actors and less so. That said, when Big Daddy Kane showed up as Father Time, a big smile came on my face.
Oh, yeah.
First off, I'm like Big Daddy Kane acts, and then I'm like, he acts well. I really like Big Daddy Kane, and he's in Meteor Man later this summer, so I'm declaring this is going to be Big Daddy Summer.
That's our title.
Every week that we do this podcast, it'll be Big Daddy Summer in my book. But no, there's a lot here that I do think works. Like it has its flaws because it's a very earnest movie as far as like trying to do all these things and take it seriously yet still have like Tone Loc and a few others that are like there for comedic purposes. But like Van Peebles and Tiny Lister, like there's just a lot of like solid people doing Western stuff in here that I liked and approaching it from an angle that yes, you don't necessarily get to see all the time. Billy Zane makes for a good villain, obviously. He's Billy Zane. And I like that it takes like risks as far as there's a lot of people in this movie that we're supposed to be rooting for, and not a lot of them survive. You don't get away with that a lot in movies, big Hollywood movies. So it's the kind of thing where it is not a great movie by any means. I'm not arguing that, but I like so much of what it's trying to do. I appreciated the style that Van Peebles is bringing to it as far as the director. And I just had a good time with watching Posse.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I was like, why don't we talk about this movie like we do Young Guns? Like this is right
this is
in
far better
than
Young Guns.
And
what about Young Guns 2? I've actually never seen that.
We didn't get Posse too. But yeah, this one like, and there's good stuff. Like I pretty much I mimic everything Aaron said about this. But like. I noticed like the first action scene, and there's some others in here too, but the action like really nifty, but the camera has a sense of purpose and like identity for each character, the way it shoots. So every time it focuses on a character, it really fills who they are with the way his camera's moving, zooming, like stationed. Like it's really cool. And he's doing some wicked angles throughout this movie and floating the camera like it is like a free moving camera, smooth. It's not shaky cam or anything like that, but it is moving around. It's always involving to look at, even if it's a down time scene. This one gets snow Western status. There's scenes in the snow. I was like, check, awesome. And there's just everybody. He invited like all these people here to like, hey, we got to do this, and they all are happy as hell to be there. And like Pam Grier's like, I mean, you could call her wasted in this movie, but damn, she shows up, has fun, blasts some guns. It's awesome. And then like you mentioned, Billy Zane was like, just even if he's not acting, like even if he wasn't giving a good performance, visualizing him is awesome because he's got this cool look that he is a different look every time he shows up. Like they find fun things to do with the eye patch guy and his like hats and stuff. And I'm just like, they're having fun with this villain. Like he is awesome. Like, and he goes from like classy to like using like Scrubs as his henchman through it.
I'd love to hear like if it gets like rediscovered or whatever you want to call it, I'd love to hear Van Peebles just talk more about like making this movie because I imagine
he got his dad a part in here. Like his dad gets to like
Woody Strode gets to narrate. Like I mean, there's just like there's so much going on, but like it's not like he's getting he had New Jack City, which is I gave him basically what I would assume is the blank check to make a movie like this that probably cost more to some degree. I love to hear what those influences were because he's grown up under his dad, who's obviously a legendary filmmaker in his own right, and and from here it's not he gets more movies to make, but this seems like the highest profile thing he gets to do for. Like Scott, do you know offhand? Like after this, I mean, he makes other movies, but this is pretty much it.
This seems to be the biggest in terms of mainstream profile.
Yeah, like he got a lot of buzz when he made the movie about his dad, Badass.
Yes,
Sweet Back, Sweet Out. But that even then, that was an indie movie.
This and New Jack City,
those are
and we can debate why. Seem to be. Come and gone just like that, unfortunately.
He had a lot
he did do other movies. He was in he was sort of an added value element in the third Highlander movie for what that's worth.
Well, he did a lot of team ups with Christopher Lambert. They have like 3 or 4 movies together. So
Gunman, is that a Albert Pulin? Nope, I'm wrong. Ignore me. Carry on.
All right. But no, I was just saying I'd love to hear him talk more about because you're not wrong as far as the way the camera is utilized in this film. I find it so fascinating in a realm where we have nowadays, and you have Django, you have other things that like obviously are taking influences. I'd love to hear more of Van Peebles. It's not like his dad was shooting this way for this kind, this in this extreme kind of way, making very huge choices. So I think he'd have a lot to say about it. He's a well-learned man. I like Mario Van Peebles. Like I always try to understand that he isn't a bigger deal because I think he's a very talented artist in his own right.
Yeah, he followed this up with another he must have had a deal at Gramercy, but he did a movie about the Black Panthers.
It was like the first movie about the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
And then he did a movie called Love Kills with Leslie Ann Warren and Daniel Baldwin.
He directed a cop thriller called it was co-directed by him and his dad called Gang in Blue, which you can figure out what that's about. You're correct.
I don't know if it's his latest movie, but one of his most recent movies was the adaptation of the Robert Shaw story of the USS Indianapolis with Nick Cage as the lead.
Yep. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
But more recently.
Anyway, Scott, what do you think? I'm sorry, we're dancing around this.
Oh no, it's okay.
Posse.
We got time. No, I was also very much reminded of The Harder We Fall, which by default perhaps, but nonetheless is probably my favorite Netflix studio programmer. And I think you and I have talked about this, and I know but I think there's a clear distinction of quality when Netflix is giving blank checks to not a white guy filmmakers who know this might be their only shot, versus white guys who already have a certain amount of prestige that are just, blowing the blank check because there's nobody to tell them no. But I digress.
When is Bright 2 coming out again?
Probably one weekend before The Gray Man 2.
I mean, that'll probably actually happen though, but I hear you.
But no, I enjoyed this film for what it was. It's a solid, again, it's a studio programmer. And what's sad is that, the film was, groundbreaking and overdue, all those buzzwords 30 years ago, but it's probably still would be today, because when The Harder They Fall came out in 2021, we were still having those conversations. And this is something that I'm probably going to talk about a lot for the summer, because there's a lot of movies that should have been a stepping stone for films like that becoming more par for the course. But, and my big conspiracy theory is that after 9/11, everyone just retreated into giant 4-quadrant tales about white guys saving the day from larger than life evil forces, but whatever.
I mean, we talked about those Fox shows, not a lot of black Fox shows after 9/11.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much.
But I will say this, just because I think the film is fine, but I really, really liked the third act. I think it's a terrific action finale.
Yeah.
It has a ton of good guys and
lots
a ton
of
of bad
explosions
guys.
and
it's par for a Western,
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons I enjoy a good Western is that because they're shooting each other and every showdown isn't a 10-minute martial arts battle, they actually have to stop and talk to each other before each showdown, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There has to be a character interaction and or a plot beat. It's not just, I have a sword, I have a stick, clack, 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 clack. As much as I like that, don't get me wrong, but there is a different vibe. And this film specifically, there's about maybe a half a dozen major showdowns, and they all feel organic and creative and sometimes surprising. Because, I'm watching the film, and maybe it's because I was just in the wrong headspace. I think, oh, this is one of those ones where almost everybody dies. Okay.
Yeah, the people you think will survive do not survive in this movie.
Yeah.
I was surprised by, and when certain people die, I was surprised by too. It's like, okay, we're changing the game.
Well, Steven bites it. The high build white guy bites it.
Top build Steven Baldwin
with like 40 minutes to go in the movie.
Yeah,
so it's
fucking Wheezy. I thought was gonna go early and be like their motivation to like do stuff. He makes it pretty much all the way through.
Yeah, there's a lot to enjoy about like the choices being made here. And Peebles is good. He's playing the straight man of all these people, but I thought he's solid. I think he's better than Thomas Ian Griffith. As far as, making a thing starring himself. He gave so much time to all these other cast.
He gave himself a sex scene, but yeah.
He plays himself cool as far as being
amongst us
the stoic one.
But no, I mean you brought this up right away, and I agree with you. It does quote unquote suffer because I've seen the 30 years later with a bigger budget, more production values, blah, blah, and whatever version of it. But this is still a really fun, solid 3.5 star Western studio programmer. And
I was surprised that I wouldn't expect it to get good reviews because that's just, I know how these things work. But I was surprised that Ebert was down on it. This seemed like something Ebert would be like, you guys got to see this movie. And he was like, just not as weak, I guess, for this one.
Yeah. You liked Lost in Yonkers?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
I don't know if he reviewed Excessive Force, although Joe Layden of Variety, who I, am Facebook friends with, he reviewed this film back 30 years ago for Variety, or Excessive Force, and he was not a fan.
Well, I mean, this is coming Unforgiven had come out, so I guess that's your staple Western there. And if you're not living up to that, maybe.
Well, and Young Guns, of course.
Well, yeah,
and Young Guns
too. Both.
And Young Guns too. Both the Young Guns.
We're not quite to Tombstone yet, are we?
Later this year.
Tombstone's the latest.
That's
Christmas
'93.
Justice is coming this Christmas.
Directed by not Kurt Russell. Who are we kidding?
Speaking
of George P. Cosmatos, Jesus,
and Wyatt Earp is of course like a few.
Yes,
and that's bad. But I don't know. Ebert wasn't because he didn't like Quick and the Dead either. So, he wasn't into the pulpy westerns.
I like Quick and the Dead quite a bit. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, it's fun.
As did I.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another film where, I mean, by virtue of its structure, it's like take all these colorful actors and just have them do one-on-one showdowns, and that's almost the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the YouTube watchers are enjoying this episode.
Yeah. Aaron and Brandon and Green and yeah.
Why am I?
I want to hit my computer and make it work.
Okay, so before we head on to the final the box office tallies, we're gonna take a look at the summer's hot news segment, Yancy's Tales from the Video Store.
I'd like to rent breakfast at Tiffany's.
This is out. Someone has it.
Out? Oh, no. I've been to 4 other places. You're the only ones that have had it.
Well, I can put it on reserve for you if you'd like.
Maybe we could call them and ask them to return it.
I worked at a Tower Video for a long time. And I was very lucky to work at the very famous Video Archives for a while. And did I work at a Laserdisc store or something? I'm forgetting a third video store that I worked at. But yes, most of the time I was employed in the 90s. And all the time in the 90s, I was renting and buying movies. So I have a certain amount of stories that may pertain.
Awesome. And these stories aren't going to be all 90s stories. Of course, that'd be crazy, and definitely not 93. So they will encompass all eras. But I wanted to include it because, you know what? Video store was a part of people's lives that week. They may have gone to the movies that weekend, or they might have gone to the video store that weekend or something like that, or during that week, pick something up. So this segment is going to cover those tales from the video store, which you already gave us one personalized one of dropping the $80, which is insane considering you dropped it from a porno theater. And I would think around that era, people going to that would have probably grabbed that $80.
It wouldn't have been a porno theater. It was literally a adult toys porno mag,
toys.
And then in the back, it would have had probably a booth for people to watch videotapes.
That $80 should have gone to some dildo that was...
Maybe it was somebody else's $80.
Maybe it was. That's insane. And it was, multiple bills, right? That were just sitting there. That's... Wow.
420s. There was a kid that lived above that store named Pee-wee or something. And he would just hang out of that window above that store as you walked home from school. And he would try to spit on you. Everybody that walked by, he would try to spit on. And you just see him sit there with his arms folded on the window of the second floor. He had he had a mohawk. His name was Pee-wee. And he would just, I would watch him. I would be half a mile away watching him spitting on people who didn't realize he was up there. And then I would go around. Interesting.
That's crazy. All right, well let's dive into your stories.
All right, so my earliest video memory, and I don't know the year. What year did Star Wars come out on VHS? 83 or 82 or something?
Star Wars, yeah, it had been around Jedi time. I think May of 1982 was the very first home release of any Star Wars film, released on VHS, Betamax, Laserdisc. Oh, well, later on, different ones. But CED, video disc, V2000, tape cassettes.
So it came out on video disc the same day, I guess. It would have been a full screen. It didn't come out letterbox until like the 90s, which is crazy. But I remember, I wasn't into Laserdisc, neither was my dad at this point, but I remember distinctly going to Big Ben's, which was a big chain in Southern California that was basically a music store, but they had a shelf of rentals. I remember explicitly going with my dad on the day Star Wars came out to go rent Star Wars because I had seen it as a very tiny little child who didn't remember it. This would have been the first time I'd ever really seen it. And I remember going to Big Ben's and there were 10 copies of Star Wars on the shelf. It was $1 to rent because it was Tuesday. And it didn't seem like anybody had rented one. This was the most popular movie ever, but this was very early in the days of home video rentals. And I remember I was there in the 90s too, when it was me and 2 other couples waiting on Saturday night for some copy of something Blockbuster had 95 copies of, just one to come back in, the Juror or something, waiting all night for it to come back.
Yeah.
And it was funny. Star Wars, it seemed like no one else had picked it up yet. They had 10 copies of the biggest home video release ever to that point in history, I'm sure.
Yeah, I seen that. That's what they did. Okay, Scott, let's see how these films fared at the box office this week.
Placing number 1 in the weekend of May 14th through May 16th of 1993 is Dave, which debuted at number 2 last weekend in approximately 1,100 screens. It added 400 screens for a 1,566 screen total, went up 16% in raw revenue, earning $8.5 million in its second weekend of release for an $18.4 million, 10-day total. The Warner Brothers comedy would eventually gross $63 million domestic. Coming in at number 2 after being number 1 last weekend was Dragon the Bruce Lee Story, holding a perfectly okay 37% down with a $6.3 million weekend, 19.2 after 10 days. It would eventually cash out with approximately $35 million domestic, which was more than good enough. And coming in at number 3, our first new movie is Posse, opening in just 949 theaters, earning approximately $5.3 million, which was the second biggest per-screen average of the weekend. The second biggest per-screen average of the weekend was the second weekend in 14 theaters of Much Ado About Nothing, a film that I'm assuming we'll be talking about later. That film earned $347,000 in 14 theaters. But back to the top 10, number 4 being Decent Proposal, $4 million, minus 12%, $84 million after 6 weekends, that is a Paramount picture that today would be a Paramount Plus miniseries.
And
number
we'll have
5.
competition next week.
Next week, at number 5, we have Lost in Yonkers, debuting in 1,190 theaters with a $3 million. That's a pretty mediocre per-screen average. A soft opening, it would earn just $9.2 million, which even, by the standards of a small-scale Neil Simon drama, isn't particularly good. Sidekicks, the Chuck Norris, Jonathan, help me here.
Brandis,
sorry. Rest in peace. I always forget his last name. Jonathan Brandis picture, Sidekicks, making $2.1 million, dropping just 5.3% in its 6th weekend, added 47 theaters, oddly enough. Thank you, Triumph Releasing Corporation, which I've never heard of until this exact segment. I'll see what else they released. It earned $11 million after 6 weekends in theaters. Number 7, Benny and June. Number 8, Indian Summer. Number 9, The Sandlot. 10, Map of the Human Heart. And Excessive Force all the way down in 17th place, earning a whopping $309,000 in 501 screens. It would eventually earn a whopping, huge, spectacular $1.152 million. One of the only films of 1993 to which Batman Mask of the Phantasm can say, "Ha ha, I beat you."
Oh, it's funny. All 3 movies this week barely make over $30 million combined that we had.
Sounds like the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
My mind is like, did Thomas Ian Griffith ever voice a character on Batman the Animated Series?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Was he Dark Side on Superman?
That's Michael Ironside, damn it.
That tracks.
And then you have David Warner, you have Malcolm McDowell, you have Mark Hamill, who prior to that was sort of doing that kind of schlock. All due respect.
This is the route I took us down. Voice actors on the Batman the Animated Series.
Hey, your fault. Who's the guy that played the Beastmaster?
Mark Singer.
He was Clayface.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of interesting character actors. Well, no, that's basically it.
Has anyone seen the Map of the Human Heart?
I have not.
Gotcha. If you open a biology book, you can find that route to there. No,
I've seen that coming.
But if you tune in next week, you'll get more of that from us. But that'll do it for this weekend. That was May 14th through 16th of 1993. Scott and Aaron, thank you for joining me as always. Before we sign out, let people know where they can keep up with you. We'll start with Scott this week.
I'm at therap.com, and I'm on Twitter at Scott Mendelson.
All right, and Aaron?
You can find me at thecodyseat.com. That's where everything I do ends up in my personal blog there. I am the editor and writer for Leo Entertainment. I also write for Why So Blue for my movie reviews and Blu-ray reviews. I'm on Twitter, Aaron's PS4, and of course I host the podcast Out Now with Aaron and Abe. We're probably talking still about the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 soundtrack at this point, and whether or not it's better or worse than the first and second. Personally, I like the second one, but I don't know, maybe the third one kicked ass. We'll see. Yeah.
Gotcha. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written work at whysoblue.com. Tune in next week as us hotshot sliver like water does into chocolate for a big dinosaur movie of the summer. All that and more as the summer of 93 at 30 continue.
Big Daddy Summer.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. The Summer of and News themes by Press Maxon. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at thebrandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.